Another example here in Miami, there was a breakfast meeting. It was church-sponsored. I attended, Rick Scott attended, Bill McCollum attended, Bill McAllister from the Republican Party, the other candidate, attended. But she did not attend. It was too religious, she said. It was a conflict of church and state. Were there too many, it was Hispanic sponsored as well. Or was it because Scott and McCollum were there? Again, this concern for Florida did not exist in the primaries, but all of a sudden now it has raised its head in the general election out of convenience. Now Mr. Childs criticized Ms. Sink for saying her actions were not in the best interest of democracy. But he added, she feels that she has to do this in order to win. This is a sad commentary on the political system and on the candidate. I also concurred with one of the reporters several weeks ago who asked Ms. Sink, after she presented her plan for her jobs plan for Floridians at a news conference, and he asked her, isn't it just empty rhetoric what you're saying? Isn't it, there's really no substance or solution to how you're going to do this? He accused her of having empty rhetoric. And Rick Scott, the Republicans' platform, is based on old conservative Republican solutions of corporate tax cuts, less unemployment benefits, eliminate corporate regulations, lay off 6,500 state workers, cut the prison system budget in half, and on and on. That would have been like a $1.4 billion reduction in budget. It's no wonder that the police union has endorsed Sink now. Not because she's such a great union supporter, but because their jobs are being threatened by the Republican candidate. But Ms. Sink is just as conservative. She favors the extension of the Bush tax cuts for the rich and the wealthy. We have had 8 years of depriving this country of $3 trillion because of the Bush tax cuts. And never were any of these dollars put back into the nation in order to create jobs. Economist after economist have stated that these $3 trillion were lost to the national economy, even though that was the rationale for having them. And Ms. Sink, along with Mr. Scott, both of them, the Democrat and the Republican, endorse this concept. They support this concept. They want to reinforce it and extend this benefit to the small elite in our state and in our country. This is the Democratic candidate. These are candidates that want to benefit Floridians in the state. Ms. Sink also wants to reduce taxes on corporations. She wants to, quote, create a healthy climate for small businesses by giving them government monies. It's the private sector, she says, that will create the jobs. Not us, not me as governor, not the state government. It'll be the private sector. We just have to give them taxpayer money. That's her rationale. That's her mindset. Leave it up to the private sector to create the jobs. Both campaigns are based on empty rhetoric. They have no price tags for their proposals and their programs and their worn-out solutions. And these worn-out solutions are what have caused this economic collapse in our society in the first place. Which candidate is worse? Is it Mr. Scott, the Republican, because of his unethical conduct and his type of leadership in the healthcare industry or the lack of it? And he turned a blind eye to what occurred in his own corporation. He said his corporation was at fault They were fined $1.7 billion, but he knew nothing about it as the CEO. So I come to Mr. Khavari, Dr. Khavari, with my arms open, fully embracing, lauding him for his ideas that he promoted years ago through his book and his knowledge and familiarity with the North Dakota system since 1919. I also endorse Dr. Khavari because he has been academically trained in the economies. He's a scholarly economist. He has written 9 books on the economy. And you compare this when we now have a situation in our state and in our country where we are in a state of crisis financially. We are on the verge of a financial collapse. We are on the verge of a Great Depression in this country and in this state. And yet, the two major parties select, nominate, they coronate now these two candidates who have been responsible for the debacle in our society. They were part of the problem, not part of the solution. They were part of the system that contributed to the debacle that is now confronting all of our citizens and all the people that are unemployed and all the jobs that were lost and the businesses that have collapsed and the homes that are in foreclosure. So it is obvious that Dr. Khavari is a natural selection. It just makes sense that he has been so expert and spent so many years on economics and knowing the different economies and what can work and what cannot work. And his ideas, which we'll hear later, I'm sure will be demonstrated to you how creative he is as well. And that's another thing. His ideas are very creative, innovative, bold. He has courage. He's demonstrated courage to advocate new ideas. Ideas that have some track record, but he's not afraid to show that he can be different. And that's what we need, our new solutions, not these old, tried and untrue solutions that have failed. And we're getting the same garbage from these other two major candidates. Dr. Khavari has also run a campaign that is more democratic than his Democratic opponent, as I referred earlier. Yes, he was a Democratic candidate until several days or a week before the deadline, and then he changed to be an independent. But his ideas are Democratic as well. And they're more Democratic than Ms. Singh, who is the Democrat candidate right now. So that's another reason to endorse Dr. Khavari. He has personally overcome obstacles, and he has exhibited a strength of character and personal courage in the face of adversity. So there you have it. Simple and clear, flexible. His idea on the state banking system gives money based on a flexibility and an access and a willingness to help Floridians and to use Florida dollars for Floridians and to turn it back over and over and over again, which will then benefit the economy. Dr. Khavari has retained his integrity. He has advocated for systems and policies that are democratic in nature. He is a pioneer. He has demonstrated fortitude and a belief in himself. And he is a strong family man and has a family to be proud of. And he has excelled academically and professionally and personally. So yes, I do remember Farid Khavari. Unlike my competitor in the primary, I do want to acknowledge Farid Khavari. And not only do I want to acknowledge his presence and remember him, but I wholeheartedly embrace and endorse his candidacy to be the next governor of the state of Florida in the year 2020.
You know, Florida's economy is in a very bad situation, probably the worst in the world. We have, the public record says we have about 1.2 million unemployed Floridians, but I think it's more like 2 million. And home foreclosure, about 1 million. And if the trend continues like that, pretty soon we will have 1 million more unemployed Floridian and 1 million more foreclosed home. And the more we get foreclosed home, we will have more unemployment, and the more unemployment we get, we will have more foreclosed home. This is an unfortunate situation. And when the future doesn't look too good, Brian mentioned about that with regard to our two candidates. And just I want to mention two things. I do not like to get involved in criticizing my candidates. I'm not going to get involved in the dubious business activities. You can read everywhere. And even the press is picking up on them that they have no plan. Now, what Alex Singh says is this. Our plan with tax incentive is this. You go, he is telling to the business people, invest $40,000, hire somebody, and come collect $3,000 in tax incentives. She's saying, if you hire somebody, I give you $3,000 tax incentive. Now I want to see that first businessman who does that, spends $40,000 in order to collect $3,000 in tax incentives. This is never going to happen. And I don't think she even understands about economics, about tax incentives. Tax incentives like that, you do it because one businessman wants to hire somebody, and the state says, okay, if you hire a veteran or a disabled person who has the same qualification, I give you $3,000 tax incentive. That will work. But not in case that you go and hire somebody, I give you $3,000 in tax incentives. A business can prosper when there is a demand for it. If you find a businessman, regardless of tax incentive or so, if there's a demand for his product, he's going to have, he will invest and he will hire people. Because if somebody comes and says to the manufacturer of chairs and tables that I will buy every day from you 100 tables and chairs, he's going to go and hire 10 people, 20 people to do that job because he knows that they are going to buy that. But nobody's going to hire people because of $3,000 tax incentives. So that is with Alex Singh. With Rick Scott, he's already telling you that I'm going to fire state employees. You know, that is a recipe for more unemployed Floridians. If you put 250,000 more Floridians out of job, what do you think they will do? They turn around here and collect unemployment. You see, both of them, they talk about their business experience. And there are good business experience and there are bad business experience. If you fire people, 6,000 of those, that is bad business experience. You don't want that kind of business experience. If somebody like Rick Scott says, I will run a corporate Florida economy like a business, that is a bad thing to say. Because in business, you cut the cost and maximize profit. In order to do an economy, you have to take all the retirees, all the students, all the veterans, all the poor people, and and those people who cause costs. Put them in a boat and dump them in the middle of the ocean, and then you will be making profit, and you can balance the budget, and that is how to run. You run a business like that, but in economy, you cannot do it. You run it like you run your family. If your old father or your old mother or your disabled kid cannot work and cannot contribute to your household, you keep them, you feed them, and you honor them, especially your parents. you do that. And this is what we have to do.